I'm John Shrek McPhee, the sheriff of Baghdad. This is, well, it was calls from the road, and then it switched to calls from quarantine. So now it's just calls in general from a crazy world. I'm talking to a friend of mine, King Kevin Casey. He's a pro fighter. Kevin, how you doing today, man? Let the guys know who you are.
I'm doing good. You know, a lot's going on right now, so a lot of things that I'm just trying to process, and communities try to process. But I thank you for having me on the show. I keep you in a high regard and a lot of respect. So definitely, it's a pleasure for me to be here and talk with you.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I feel the same about you. So look, every podcast for years, I have been saying the world is a crazy place. Like, I think every podcast I've ever made, I've said that, but I don't think it's actually, there's going to be a time where it's not getting worse. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel right now. Like, everything's so crazy, and it's like, some of the stuff going on today, like, I would have never thought when, in 1990 or 2000, we'd actually be here.
Yeah. For me, I see the world as a constantly evolving thing, and I definitely see a lot of improvements. Especially with the hot topic of the race relations. It's definitely gotten better, but there's still a lot of issues and a lot of things going on. And I think for a long time it kind of got swept under the rug, and now we're just kind of seeing all those things that a lot of people have kind of pushed aside or tried to, not acknowledge, or just, it didn't concern them in their everyday life. So they just weren't thinking about it.
Man, I completely agree. I also, think a lot of what's going on right now, like it or not, is about politics and the elite or ruling class of this country. The more they can keep the regular people fighting, like, people like us, the more they can make money, the more they can stay in power, the more they can, do whatever. So I feel like politics has kind of like forced this weird narrative down everyone's throat. And I think this is a result of that.
Well, I think there are a lot of different issues here. One is the race issue, which people, especially people of color, are obviously fed up with that aspect of it. So, but this isn't, all in all, this is like a issue for me of good versus evil. The age old, balance of the two, because, a good person can come in whatever color, a bad person can come in whatever color, so it's just kind of like, the injustices that the black community has been faced with for, throughout history is kind of what's boiling over. But to me, this is, that was an evil act. I watched the video from beginning to end, and, there are a lot of different, details that are coming out, but it was an evil act. To me, it was malicious. I've trained martial arts for over 20 years, and I'm very knowledgeable as far as leverage and technique. And it just seemed like the officer applied, a malicious amount of technique. It seemed like his energy, his attitude, and it just kind of seemed like it was deliberate. So in that regard, to me, it was an evil act. It was an act of an evil person, wherever that evil came from, whether he knew him or not, or had a separate issue, or whether he, was racist, that we didn't know, or whatever that was. It just was an evil act, and I think that should be the main part addressed in this instance. But, the race instance, or race issue in the country, something that, people are already tired of. Police brutality is something else. So, there are a lot of issues going on. People are trying to put a label on it, and I think we simplify it and just say, hey, there's evil people, there's good people. There's evil politicians, there's good politicians. So that to me is just kind of, that's what it's about. That's my focus on the situation.
Yeah, man. Look, I completely 100% agree with you. I see this, we talk about gun stuff all the time, right? I see this as, like being a gun guy and training people with firearms, whether it's police or regular people or, I see this all the time is if we blend 5 different topics together, right?
Yeah.
We can kind of, say, hey, this is what's going on. But really when we break these things down, like, I would say this is, as a lifetime Army guy, and a fan of the UFC, and, we fought every day. We had our own dojo. I fought every day my whole time in the Army, right? And, this is why, you don't knee to the head on a downed opponent, right? Because we know what's going to happen. How is that considered, in any fighting sport, martial arts, MMA, whatever you want to call it, how is that like appropriate leverage, right? Now, if you were fighting for your life and that was your only move, well, that's a different story. But, I think that cops used excessive force for that situation. And I'm not saying maybe the knee on someone's neck for, 10 seconds, 30 seconds to just kind of control a guy for something else. Right? Maybe, but for like 8 or 9 minutes, just kneeling on the guy's neck. I mean, people gotta breathe. You know what I mean?
So for me, when I think excessive force, I think you're doing more damage than is necessary. So like, let's say we're in a fight, I knock the guy out, I clearly see he's out, I go in for a couple more punches. Like to me, that's excessive force. The guy's in handcuffs, you beat him up and, you use your baton, that's excessive force. What I saw in the way I perceived the situation, I saw it as a murder. Like it wasn't about excessive force. I saw someone commit murder. At any point when someone's resisting or when someone's fighting but at the moment someone is rendered unconscious, there's no threat. So
right.
For you to continue for, more than 2 minutes, maybe 3, maybe 4 minutes after he's unconscious and you have bystanders there begging you to check his pulse and, so that to me, I'm like, there's a clear intent to kill, and I, there's no other way for me to see that than there was a murder committed. Now the other officers involved, like I can see them getting possibly a lighter sentence because different things come into play. Perspective, also they may be in a position of they're dealing with the senior officer, his authority, counts on the scene. So I don't see, all of them as getting the same equal punishment, but they were definitely involved in the murder. If I'm driving the car and my friend shoots someone out the window, like I didn't technically kill them, but I knew what was going on and I'm the driver. I'm the getaway driver. You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those situations to me. Well,
you'd be an accessory, right? An accessory to whatever the crime. Yeah, no, man. Look, dude, I completely agree. I mean, I would agree with the fact that, like, once a guy's cuffed, how much force do you really need to control him? Like, seriously, like, imagine for you stepping in the octagon and the guy's cuffed, like, you know what I mean?
We can argue that point because I feel like even in cuffs, I can pose a major threat. So we're not gonna, we can't say, if he's in cuffs, he's not a threat because you're still dangerous. But, just to, make sure there's no confusion, it doesn't matter who you are, how dangerous you are. Once you're unconscious, then that's it. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like everything's neutralized. So even if we argue and play the advocate, hey, He's been handcuffed. Well, no, you can still kick a window out. You can still kick someone in the face and break their nose. Like, so you're still dangerous in cuffs. So we're going to give them a little bit of space on that one. But once someone's unconscious, man, like, now, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Look, in Iraq, we would cuff people nightly. We'd cuff the males, right? Both hands behind their back. We'd cuff females with their hands in their front. We'd cuff the kids to a mom. And this sound, as I say it sounds kind of brutal, but the truth is, if we cuff the kid to a mom, that kid can't get lost. He can't go run in front of a vehicle, right? What I'm saying is, the reason we did it was procedurally, this is how we keep them safe, because we don't know what they're going to do. This is how we keep us safe, because we don't know what they're going to do, right? So, but what I would say is, most of our biggest problems would happen before someone was cuffed. Now, after they were cuffed, could they fight you? Yeah, sure they could. Could they try to run? Yeah, sure they could. But, there is a lot less they can do to you once they are cuffed. And I used to tell guys, like in training, we would always use the guys, as we would train, like we'd be like, I don't know, our mechanic is like, okay, you're our bad guy today, right? Because we're training and it's your job to be with us, but you're not assaulting the building, right? So we used to call our support guys the best terrorists ever, right? And then once in a while they get like, they tell guys like, hey, fight, the commanders would be like, hey, when these guys come in, you fight them as much as possible, other Army guys. And a lot of times, like, I'd put a guy on the ground and I'd be like, look, we can continue to fight, or if you just be cool, right? Just be cool, we'll treat you cool, right? And I can't tell you how many times in Iraq where someone wants to fight and it'd be like, hey, just stop fighting, have the interpreter tell them, stop fighting, we'll treat you nice. Most people, most of the time, will stop fighting, right? Or if they realize, like, a lot of times where, like, guys in training where the commanders told them to fight us, you know what I mean? I put that fool on his back and kind of stand over him like, we can keep doing this. Or, right, you could start to be cool. And I guess what I'm saying is you have to be able to apply force, and then as soon as whatever your objective is met, you have to be able to back up and be like, look, man, you know what I mean? Like,
I also feel that we have to look at some of the rules and the rules of engagement, and I think this particular case, is different because I feel like that was a murder in my opinion. But altogether, when I look at the handling of some of the rioters, they're in the wrong. They're way out of line. 90% or a larger percent of the ones are being peaceful. But you have the guys that are out of line and the people who are out of line. But then when you see them taken down, the average person weighs 160, 180 pounds, and you put them flat on their back or flat on their face, and you have 5 officers who probably average, 180, 200 pounds, and they're pushing the air out of people. You can, I mean, the lungs are fragile. So you start sitting on people's chests, putting your knee on their chest, and then you have a total of 5 people. We're getting close to 1,000 pounds.
Right.
And I've seen that on women throughout the past week. And I'm thinking, what's going on, and in the recent years, I've helped with the training with the Los Angeles sheriffs. They have a thing that they do called the lockdown. And so the lockdown is when the graduating class of cadets, they go through this grueling kind of training session where they make them do different pull-ups, sit-ups, training things. So they're exhausted. The last phase is they come into a padded room and they have a group of guys like myself who are, actually trained individuals, and we run them through different simulations. So we attack them, we fight them with gloves, we put them on the ground, and just the overall level of skill that the officers are going on the street with is very, very low, you know, and so you're having people who sometimes don't have already the physical ability. You know, I've seen women in there that weigh, 110 pounds. And so she already doesn't have the physical ability. And then you add that she may not have the technical training. So now we're in situations where she's going to have to use force, or someone who is scared and not prepared to handle a situation is going to have to use deadly force. You know, and so there has to be a different rule of engagement of how there's a limit of 2 to 3 people per person in the attack. You can't put 5 people on top of one person for that long before they lose consciousness or even worse. You know, so and then, we just need more time dedicated to properly training, because one thing that I'm fearful of, Shrek, is I have 2 nephews, man. One's autistic and one has Asperger's. And I think, they're young at this point, but at some point they become men. And I think, wow, what if, and they're bigger kids. So at some point they become men and they have, these kind of mental things going on. And someone coming from the outside, if they're ever in a situation, they don't know how to properly deal with that. So what they may take as an aggressive, angry person may just be someone with, a mental issue, a mental disorder, and I think if you know that ahead of time, or you're, looking for something like that, you may deal with the situation different. 90% of the people who are in the streets doing things have some sort of mental issue.
Oh man, I can't tell you how right you are, and I can't tell you how many times, like, we roll up on helicopters, right? We walk outside this house. We stay about 100 yards away, right? Because there's foreign fighters and machine guns in the house, and they don't know we're there yet. And then, for whatever reason, guy comes out the front of the house, and then he charges us in the middle of the night. Just some random dude starts running at us, and we're like, what the hell? So, of course, to protect the force, we shoot the guy. Well, turns out later when you talk to the family is, the guy had, some type of mental issues, right? Where, there's no, in other countries, and what I've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan is, no matter how bad their issues are, they live at home. Where are you going to put them, right? So I can't tell you how many times that happened to where, what do you do? What do you do? Some guy, is charging at you at full speed. The thought is the only guy that would do that would be someone with a bomb. Right?
Yeah, I think there's a different element in your situation, because,
No, but what I'm saying is your mindset is right, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen that in war. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. You know what I mean? And well, okay, so, what happens, when, and I'll tell you another situation is, a guy with severe mental issues, comes out of the house with a gun.
Yeah. Well, see, I mean, at that point, someone with a gun, in any situation, it's like, you have to treat them the same way as you treat anybody, but what I'm referencing is someone, with a mental issue who may charge you without a weapon. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and they're out. That's when someone has a weapon, I mean, you have to, self-preservation is number one.
No, I completely agree. And I think, that's a very legitimate concern to have. You know what I mean? It is. And the truth is like, look, you can't always be there for family, right? Cause you work, you gotta earn a living, you gotta, you got your grind, you got your hustle, right? Like, what do you do to protect that family? And I'll tell you, man, like in big cities, I personally think that never goes well. In smaller towns, like, a buddy of mine, one of his sons is, oh man, I don't know what he has, but he has, I don't know, he has something, and the older he gets, the kind of farther out there he gets. You know, when he was a kid, you know, when he was younger, a kid, we used to hunt, fish with him, and, you know, as he hit a certain age, he's kind of degrading, and all the police know him, and if you heard him talk, you would think this guy is a huge threat, but, you know, it's just all this stuff goes through his mind, and he just says it, you know what I mean? But he's not acting on any of it. But if he was in a city and did that wrong place, wrong time, someone would crush him, man. So yeah, I think, dude, I think that's a legitimate concern. And I say that
something that I've heard. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, the training with the police. You know, I used to roll with the LA County Sheriff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I'd go up to the canyon and I'd taught those guys to shoot. And, you know, although I would consider the LA County Sheriff some of the better in the United States, you know, what I would say is on a scale of 1 to 10, you know what I mean? 10 being the best, 5 being average, you know, most law enforcement officers are probably a 3 or less with a firearm. Now, couple that with, you know, they weigh 150 pounds or 110 pounds, some 6'4" guys coming after you, right? It's like you said, that girl's going to reach deadly force sooner than another large guy. I completely agree with all that and the level of training. And I also say this is, we used to run our own, it was really fun, but we used to run our own hand-to-hand program called Mr. Goodbar. And, you know, in our training kind of pipeline, guys, you know, every day you're doing MMA, right? Back in the day, it was like, it was weird stuff, but, you know, it transitioned into MMA, right? And you probably know, Greg, you know, Greg has been with us for 25 years that I know of, right? So anyway, we used to run this thing called Mr. Goodbar. So they train all the new guys. And then what would end up happening is, at the Mr. Goodbars, you'd come into a bar and we'd try to get about 20 guys in there, all gloves, all headgear.
Yeah.
And you got to get your way out. What you realize real quick is, if you ain't smart, you ain't getting out of there. They're going to put it to you, right? But if you make all the right moves, you can probably escape. And then we do like a 4-on-1 room, right? Padded rooms. You come into the room, there's 4 guys in there, you got to get your way out. Then we do a 2-on-1 room, and then the final one was a 1-on-1 room, and it was a kind of small room, probably kind of little smaller than the average bedroom in a house. And then the more advanced fighter guys, me, you know, my boss, some of my bosses, like guys that could actually fight, is you had to fight a student 1-on-1 in one of these rooms. Now, the goal is student gets the first shot, and then the student's got to make it out of the room. And no student ever made it out of the room. But what the students didn't know is if you worked the 1-on-1 room, you had to do 5 fights. So you had to fight 5 students to accept it, right? Because, you know, 1-on-1, when you're fresh, it's not a big deal. So, and with all of that, what you learn really quick is getting away is better than being in a fight.
Yeah.
And
now, quick question for you, Shrek. Quick question.
Yeah.
To kind of rewind a little bit. Have you had the chance to watch the whole video? Or have you seen a portion of the video? Or
I've seen the first part, and then the second part came out, and then the third part. So I've kind of seen most of it, but all in different parts on different days. You know what I mean? Like I haven't seen the whole thing at once.
So a guy like yourself, you know, who has a trained eye, what was your perspective and standpoint on how that was handled? Do you feel like it was a mistake? Do you feel like, you know, miscommunication? What was your perspective on that?
Look, I always tell guys this, and this is kind of my mindset. is what this person is doing right now a death sentence? Meaning, if this goes bad right now, is this a death sentence for this person? Right? And the truth is what was it, over a $20 bill or some shit? A fake 20? Like, you know what I mean? This ain't a death sentence for any human being, right? Like, so, my thing is this a death sentence? If no, why are we even gonna fight about it? Like, dog, just come down. Just come to the station, do the paperwork. With the COVID thing, you're gonna be out in an hour or so, and you're gonna probably beat this in court, but, I was called here, I have to do my job as well, right? Now, you try to get the guy cuffed, he fights a little bit. Once you get the cuffs on, and I can't tell you, I did this night after night. Once I get the cuffs on a guy, I'd be like, look, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to hurt you, man. Just come with me. Let's just get this over. Now, having said that, right, is that's kind of my attitude with this. I am only fight if I have to, and this is a last resort. Make sense?
Now, did you feel like, what I'm more asking is like the actual, did you feel like this was a mistake that the cop accidentally applied that pressure? Or did you feel like, hey, there's a little bit of malicious intent in this one?
I think it's a little of both, right? And what do I say by that is so this is kind of the second part of this is, night after night, we follow procedures to safeguard ourselves in the fort and safeguard everyone that works, right? And then the next thing, in having said that, I would say is night after night, you deal with, like for us, it was night after night, you're taking fire. Night after night, someone gets injured. One of your friends gets injured. You know what I mean? And then it becomes personal. Dudes are like, yo, we need to kill these guys. But the truth is like, well, if the guys fight us, we can kill them. But what happens if the guy realized he was fucked up and raises his hand and comes out, raises his hand and say, I surrender? Do we just fucking drop him because he just shot someone you know?
I think we're talking about two different things.
Well, no. Let me finish. So what ends up happening is, time and time again, you're in these fucked up situations where you think this much force is always warranted. You're always going to that level 10. You're in the red, right? And as my job as a boss is, I would have to back guys down. Like, yo, this ain't personal. This guy don't know you. He don't know, he just shot your friend. Calm the fuck down and do your job. I think with these police, what happens is they're so used to fucking humanity at its worst that these guys will go fucking level 10, fuck someone up when kinda wasn't warranted. You know what I mean? And this is where leadership comes in, is the leadership should come in and be like, yo, how come everyone you bring into the station is fucked up? You know what I mean? Fucking stop that. But the truth is the, police leadership, is allowing this to happen time and time again. So a guy like this starts to think that this is his norm. Someone fights him, he's instantly level 10, kneeling on this guy's neck. Like, think about this. You think this is the first time he's been kneeled on someone's neck? I don't think so. And
yeah, I think he had 18 or 16 other complaints against him.
Yeah, seriously, right? So this is a leadership thing of his bosses going, hey man, check this out. Now, it goes back to what I originally said is I think this is some leadership stuff. I think this is, these guys get in these situations every day. They just get tired of it. They're fucking fed up. And what they don't know is they're burned the fuck out. So, dude's burned out. You don't know what's going on in his personal life. He comes to work. He's like, yo, fuck everybody. This is a recipe for disaster. You know what I mean? I'd also say this, and this is and I'm speaking from experience here. I was burned out. I was a fucking asshole. And, if you fucked around, I'd just fucking put you down and we'll deal with it later, what I didn't know is at some point I became burned out, and I went from kind of happy-go-lucky guy, always just chilling, to fuck everybody all the time. And once I learned that, I had to back myself down. I think there is no, look, you're a cop, you do shit like this for 10 years. You're not getting a break. You got to do this for 20 fucking years. It's easy to become doubt. It's easy to become bitter, right? I mean, think about this. Like, you're, as a fighter, you can't just get in the octagon every day and expect, look, you got to fight. You got to take some time off, regroup, get your mind right, get cardio, get strength, go back again, right? There's none of that for police officers.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's not an issue, a matter of leadership, because you can have just one, a bad apple or a pocket of bad seeds in any group. And how can we say, the leader at the top is responsible for somebody who goes off the deep end? So you might send somebody in, you gave them a certain amount, certain orders, and now they're in there, might be doing something like raping women or shooting people. So, you're not responsible ultimately for people who don't stay within the guidelines of what the job is.
No, I disagree. Because I disagree because I had 56 guys that wanted to drink, fuck, and murder every day. And the guy I know the guy I know that works for me, that I know he's a complete psycho. Not only want to kill everybody, but he wants to cut them up and look at their fucking guts for no reason. I keep my eye on that guy all the time. And something fucked up happens and he's standing there. I'm like, no. Fucking just no. You know what I mean? Go on outer perimeter security, right? Guys I know that, have a tendency to be a fucking rapist or fucking women problem, keep those guys away from the women. So as a leader, I had to deal with that. And I do think I do think there's bad apples. I do think there's a guy who could just fucking snap and be the problem today and never have been a problem before. Yeah, this is human nature. This can happen. But I bet you look back in this guy's history, you'll see a history, which, you've seen this, of excessive force. And this is a leadership problem where his bosses could be like, dude, back it down. Or, what if this guy's going through a divorce or had a kid die or something and head's in the right place? Don't put this guy on the street. Give him a break for a while. You know what I mean? So I think there is. I think there is a leadership problem. And I think, think about this. In time, we just had a pandemic, right? And how many politicians showed actual leadership of trying to do what's best for everybody? When stuff's going good, it's easy to be in charge. When stuff goes bad, right, this is where you see true leaders and if they're effective or not, right? So I do think leadership of police forces is bad. And I'll tell you this, is I work at police forces all the time. I'm not anti-cop. I try to help these guys and train them better and show them better and teach them better, right? But I'll tell you what I see is these police departments, big cities, they'll have $100 million budget to pay out wrongful death for shootings because they shoot someone because they missed and they hit a kid in the background. Yeah. And it's look, why don't you take 1 million of that 100 million you set aside and invest it in training so you're not paying the 100 mil on the backside? But the problem is when you start talking about money and the purse strings, they're going to fight you tooth and nail. If you spent more money on police training, right? And sometimes it doesn't take more money. Sometimes it just ends up being realistic or finding the right guys for the job or, the solution is several layers deep in several different ways. But I think in the United States, they're more susceptible to pay for whatever they fuck up than spend that money on training ahead of
time.
Okay, so next topic, right, is, hey, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Torrance, California, South Bend. Yeah, so I have my share of experience with racism.
Yeah.
Dealing with the law enforcement.
Yeah. What's your take on the racism piece?
Well, I mean, the unfortunately, it seems that I fit the profile, and I don't know the numbers, but I think that probably the numbers would show that minorities commit a lot of crimes. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I tend to look like those gentlemen. So, whether I was or was not, I mean, I've been pulled over for no reason. I've been harassed. I've been beat up by the police. At that point in time, I did something that was against the law, but it didn't warrant being beat up. But, it just kind of showed me, just the overall general attitude of when I've come across police, especially in my youth. As I've gotten older, I've come in more contact. I've trained, tons of officers over the years at this point. But just, my younger years, it just seemed like I always fit the profile. I've been pulled over I've been stopped by the police and they said, the description. And I'm thinking, okay, how many black guys walk around, with the black shirt, you know what I mean? So that's been my experience in America, and just learning how to avoid police. I remember I was driving. I've been, in the beginning of my relationship with my wife, we're driving around and the police get close to me, and I say, hey babe, check your seatbelt, and she looks at me and she says, why are you acting so nervous? Why do you get different? You're not breaking the law. And and I knew I wasn't breaking the law, but I've been preconditioned from my experiences, from other people that I know experience with the law. And a lot of times, it's not a pleasant one, and I get it, they're in a situation where a lot of times they don't have time to say, hey, is this a good guy or is this a bad guy? They have to assume that, hey, this person that I'm walking up to the car could be that guy who has the gun. Because like we know in everything, in fighting, in war, split seconds make the difference in life or death. So I get it. A lot of times they don't have the time to kind of like put you in the pile of good or bad. But as a residual effect of that, now you have people who are like innocent, being treated a certain way or just being, demeaned or disrespected, sit on the curb, or just an overall attitude that comes with that.
Yeah, man. Look, I spent my whole adult life in the Army, and man, I don't know, and maybe it's just an Army thing, but like, man, we had all kinds in the Army, every race, you know what I mean? And I never really judged anybody by skin color. It was like, I judge people by, this guy's a fucking asshole. I don't care what color his skin is. Or, hey, this dude is a fucking great guy, right? So the whole racism thing, like in 2020, it's kind of hard for me to grasp from my experience, because I worked in a place where, well, I was in the Army. I didn't really experience anything like this. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you this too.
Yeah.
I think through the war years, from 2001 till I retired in 2011, I had no idea what was going on in the United States. Does that make sense? Like, I was in my own element. I didn't watch the news because I knew the news was wrong about the war. Why? Because I was there. I knew they were wrong. So I've known I stopped watching the news in probably 2003, thank God, right? But I think I missed a lot of like cultural stuff that goes on in the country. And man, I if you would have asked me when I was, my last year in the Army, if racism was a thing, I'd be like, no, man, like we all work together. We have a great time. I got all kinds of friends. Like I would have told you, like, no. And, here in 2020, a few years later, it's kind of hard for me to grasp, only because, I've seen such a fair world where everyone got along. We all had a similar goal, right? We're fighting a war. We win the war when it takes all kinds, whether you're the guy with the rifle or the guy, packing my parachute or the guy that fixed my truck or whatever nationality, race, color, like we were all one team. You know what I mean? And I just kind of, I don't know. And I really don't know anybody that thinks other than that. But then again, I'm a retired Army guy. I was in the Army, right? Like most people I know are Army guys. Like I don't know anybody, that is like, racism was an actual thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's all about who the perceived threat or quote unquote enemy is at the time. If you're in the Army, now we're representing as Americans, and under America fly, many different nationalities. When you go to a street cop, and let's say what neighborhood is he in? What is the perceived threat? Who is the quote unquote enemy in that area or perceived enemy? So if you go to, deep in West LA, South Central, these areas, if they come across, blonde haired person, most of the time they're like, hey, this isn't a threat in this area. In this area, perceived threat is, people who look like this or dress like this or drive that car, so it's kind of like, can we say it's their fault? Not really, it's just that sometimes there's people who just, who are innocent and aren't part of that negative culture, and they're not doing, bad things who kind of fall in the same category with those because of, kind of just guilty by, I don't want to say affiliation, but just maybe looking a certain way.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. So do you think, so people protest, right? And, people are protesting, the peaceful protests, we'll talk about that first. For the Floyd guy, right? Or, racial equality, like, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there should be, the people, supposedly we run the country. I think we should be keeping the police department honest. I think we should be keeping the politicians honest. And I think, protesting is great, and being a gun guy, Virginia had, I don't know, like 30,000 people surrounded the Capitol in like body armor and rifle to protest the gun law. Like, think about that as a powerful statement. 30,000 armed civilians in body armor with rifles saying, we're not going to do this. Like, name a police force that could deal with that. They couldn't, you know what I mean? So I'm all for that. I'm all for that for change, right? But like, I don't understand when it crosses the line, the burning and the looting and just getting free shit.
Well,
I don't understand.
To me, I'll explain it. I'll explain it. There's a lot of youth that are misguided, and they don't know. Like, you think about yourself when you were in your early teens, and your hormones are going everywhere. You don't know what you're gonna be when you grow up. You don't know. They're confused about this, confused about that, and so they're dealing with all of these emotions, and they don't know. It's not always channeled in the right way. So, like, let's say, like, some people will, Shrek, we're the kind of people where, let's say if we're on the street, somebody slapped us in the face. That is a real problem for them, right? We might react in a way that the average citizen would be like, oh my God, what did he just do? He just he just went off and some people you just slap in the face and they'll go call the cops on you. You know what I mean? So it's like different people digest, their emotions and how they react differently. So, if I punched the guy, put him to sleep, and it was on camera, the whole world is like, he's an animal. But to me, that's just how what I would do, so and so to me. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like we're looking at it and we're saying, hey, they're doing this and they're doing that. And it's like, that's how that personal individual processes an immense amount of emotional anger. frustration. You know, it doesn't make it right. You know, some parents, when their child acts out of order, they hit their kids. And then some parents, they say, hey, no, you're going to sit here and you're going to write, so read this book and you're going to do that. And it's like, okay, parenting is different. And we may look at the way they parent and not agree or disagree with it. So but what we have to look at is this wasn't happening prior to that murder being shown, you know, virally across the world. You know, and so now we're sitting here, we're trying to say, hey, they're digesting their energy wrong. But like you said in the cops' defense, we don't know what he's going through at home. He might have got divorced. Well, that kid might have got molested. That kid might have, you know, who knows what those kids are going through. They've been out of school. You know, they haven't had their structure. They haven't had their routine. You know, their parents are worried about how they're going to pay the bills because they just lost their job. You know, not to mention how many of them were probably already in poverty before this began.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So we're looking at just you know, the whole world basically in a situation, and just in our country, you know, we have some underlying issues and you know, especially in the, you know, certain areas, and that frustration is just, you know, the fuse was already short, you know, and the timing with everything, with COVID and lockdowns and all that is just a you know, recipe for what you're seeing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Do you think the looting and all that is more politically driven than anything else?
I think there's different people doing it for different reasons. You know, then you have just, you know, like ignorant young kids who aren't thinking and they're just trying to have fun. You know, they haven't had any outlets, and it's fun to go out there and cause some trouble and make some noise. And, you know, I see these fires and I'm like, you know, the average person doesn't do that. You may have people who are just arsonists and are looking at this as an opportunity because, hey, now I can go set my fires. You know what I mean? So we're dealing with so many different personalities, certain, you know, different profile types and just all able to express, you know, or using this as an excuse to do different things. You know, and then we have the agitators. You know, I've seen guys I've seen piles of bricks just left, you know, coincidentally in the middle of the street, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, let's leave these here so they can grab them and we can, you know, so, you know, there's a lot going on, and I'm not, you know, I don't know the political agenda, what they want ultimately, but there's a lot of things going on that this issue is just kind of masking, you know, for them to, you know, implement something else.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like, look, the fucking brick. Like, there's, you know, I live, you know, I don't live near downtown, right? But I live, you know, there's a downtown, which we call it downtown, but it's a small town, you know? There was bricks. I was just telling my wife this. There was bricks in our downtown area, and it's like, those weren't there the other day. And then I see the bricks on the video, like, someone dropped off a truckload of bricks the day before people are supposed to protest. Like, I want to know who's dropping off the bricks. And then, you know, a buddy of mine, he's a cop in Baltimore. He just posted a thing on Facebook. They just policed up. They have garbage trucks. They're calling the garbage truck to come get these bricks because I think just this morning they dropped off like 6 truckloads of bricks around the city. And the garbage men got to go put them all in a garbage truck, right? But, dude, the fucking bricks, like, someone is legitimately dropping off bricks near, like, county courthouse buildings and shit like that. So, you know, maybe someone would have the, you know, ammunition or the brick, I guess, you know, to throw or crazy. Them bricks is crazy. I don't even get it, you know?
Well, the same as peace serves, some people's agenda. You know, chaos, unrest serves, you know, another group or organization's agenda. You know, so we can put a name to it. We can say, oh, it's Antifa, or we can say, you don't know who it is, you know, and it could be multiple, and it could be just individuals, and, you know, so this is just a situation that is very unfortunate, you know, but when we look at what happened and we're saying, okay, hey, let's say this happened every time, I guarantee, we'll see those situations much, much, much less. And I think some people won't react to peace, to peace the same way as they will react to seeing their neighborhood getting looted, or someone, throwing something or vandalizing or burning up something. They might not react the same.
Yeah, I agree, man. So what do you think it would take to kind of like just get back to normal where, there's no rioting, no looting, no, you know what I mean? People just get back to their jam. What do you think it's going to take?
Number one is going to be, first and foremost, the prosecution in some form of the other officers involved. Number two, the energy has to dissipate, and the people have become more passionate, more empowered because they see, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're burning police cars, we're breaking things, and no one can stop us. So there's a certain level of empowerment to those people as well. So it's gonna just take however long that it takes for that energy to kind of dissipate, which I think is gonna be even longer considering that there's nothing else going on. You have a lot of responsible people out there who normally would say, hey, you know what, I have to go to work tomorrow, or hey, you know what, I have to do this. And that's not the case. Everybody has a lot more free time and a lot more pent up frustration than normal. So I think it's going to take without the National Guard and the police officers, becoming super, super brutal, I think it's going to go on for a while. Now how, what level are they prepared to go to? Can you answer a question for me, Shrek, that I'm curious about? What's the difference between when they say, okay, we have the normal police department versus we're going to bring in the National Guard? Like, what makes that scarier? Are they prepared to fire on the people? Or what makes that the move that's like the end all to the situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I always see it as a joke, right? Because, the National Guard essentially is just more bodies for the police. Does that make sense? Bodies, vehicles, the police probably don't have, let's just say like a police department has 100 people and they got 1,000 rioters. There's no way, 100 police can control them, right? So they bring in the National Guard. And I think what most people don't realize is if you look at the National Guard, they don't even give, I feel for those National Guard kids because they join to get college money to pay off their college loans. And then they're told to stand on the street for these riots, right? But they don't give them any ammo. They don't give them any way to defend themselves. They just kind of like...
So they don't have live rounds. Wow.
Yeah, they don't got shit, man. You know what I mean? The only thing they have is there's a lot of them.
Got it. So,
and I'd also say this, man, with the National Guard is speaking at a high level for the Army is, think about this. National Guard kid dies. This is why the Army doesn't really want to get involved. However, the National Guard is controlled by the state, right? And so, the Virginia National Guard is controlled by the Virginia governor. The Army can say yes or no or whatever, right? But the state controls the National Guard. So what ends up happening is a lot of times is these states will ask for the National Guard or to order the National Guard to go. And then the Army's like, oh no, you can go, but you're not using our vehicles or our gear at all, which is everything they own pretty much. So it's just kind of bodies. But I would say this is, okay, you kill a National Guard kid, right? Think about this. The National Guard kid dies. The National Guard kid's family gets, I think, $400,000 of insurance.
Yeah.
All right. How many times do you think the National Guard wants to pay this out during this period of unrest?
Got you.
Right? So when you boil it down, you boil it down to the money, the Army and the National Guard don't even want to be in this.
Makes sense.
But yeah, and then if you look at the pictures of those kids, hey, look at the magazine. not one of them has a mag in their gun.
Wow.
So, it's like I've been hearing the hey, we're calling in the National Guard, and I'm like, I get a chuckle every time because it's like, you're going to send a kid to go get his ass kicked, or luckily he's got a helmet on because if they hit him in the head with a rock, at least it'll protect him because that's all he's got.
I thought that the National Guard had a different, authority that they could use, lethal force if they need it. I don't know, so whoever the state police would be, their hands would be clean or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the National Guard, when they come in, they work for the governor. So, like, let's just say the state police or the local, let's just say the National Guard goes to a major city, LA, right? Who's ever controlling the LA police would be using them as bodies to help control stuff.
Understood.
Makes sense. But I would also say this is like, in other, the reason this doesn't happen in other countries is it's because, looters will be shot and no one gives a shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, looting would go away if, you tried to bust into a Walmart and someone shot you, like, you'd be less likely to loot Walmart. You know what I mean? And
that's the difference between the democracy and what even for me, man, like, I'm not used to seeing, people, like, especially women. Like, I've been seeing women get hit with batons and hit in the stomach with the batons. And to me, man, like, those visuals, they're disturbing, cause I'm thinking these are obviously kids, these are Americans and they're women. And these, some of these cops, I'm like, man, how is that going to defuse the situation?
Yeah, it ain't.
I saw a senator's daughter. I think it was a senator or a governor's or something, maybe a senator's daughter or something like that, got arrested. And I remember telling my wife when I watched, one of the protests and the women were getting hit, I said, their fathers or somebody, and they're going to see their daughters getting hit by the police. They're obviously up there with sort of empowerment, feeling like they can stand there and there's their purpose. So, to me, it's kind of common sense. Like, why would you attack women for all of America to see?
Yeah, I think, so honestly, I think a lot of what you see in the media, right? Because I don't think the news is your friend or my friend or anyone's friend. You know what I mean? I think the more the news can stir shit up and stir the pot, the better their ratings are. So I think they're trying to, I believe a lot of our problems comes from the media, right? Social media, Facebook. Like, I don't believe any of them people got your best interest at heart at all.
I agree. And it's definitely fuel on the fire.
It is.
But on the second hand, it's like, there wouldn't be, anything to see if the cop wasn't hitting the girl with the baton. You know what I mean? So it's just, certain things to me are just, unacceptable. You don't hit American women, full force with batons.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's, it's, this whole thing, I told my wife, I was like, this whole thing is, a bad apple, right? Like, that guy kneeling on Floyd's neck was wrong, completely wrong. It's an evil act, right? But it doesn't make all police bad. You know what I mean? And, but the problem today, I feel like this too. If I said,
really quick, I said you don't hit American women. You don't hit women in general, but I'm just referencing, what we see in this country as not the norm. Because in other countries, they do different things. So, we do things different here. That's more kind of what I was saying.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. Like in Pakistan, like they'll stone a woman to death for nothing. You know what I mean? Like throw rocks at her.
Yeah.
But, no, I think this whole thing is like, I think, a bad apple, this cop, this was an evil act, this was wrong, doesn't make all cops bad, but if you say like, oh, the cop was wrong, everyone's like, oh, you're anti-police. You know what I mean? And then it's like, we talk, we're friends, but like, it seems like in the news or on social media, if you say, anything, you're for the cop, so you're against the guy, Floyd that died. Or if you're for Floyd, you're against the cops. And like, well, I don't think that's the case. I think that's how people are kind of putting it out these days. You're either for or against, but the truth is like, well, I'm for most police, but I'm not for police doing shit like that. And then if you ask the average cop, he would probably say the same thing as me and you. And then, you know what I mean? So I think the truth is in between somewhere. And I think, again, we started here is everything the media, I think the media loves to blend this stuff together, hey man, we built you a great fire. All you need is a spark. You know what I mean? When, look, we're all Americans. We're all in this together, man. Like, I treat people like they treat me. You treat me good, I will treat you good. You look out for me, I will look out for you. Right? And I think there's more people like us that think like us out there than the news or anyone will let you think.
Well, how would society be if we really all work together? Because the thing is this, like separation makes it easier to control.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's working together, then now you have, all of the people, with their disagreements versus the powers that be, which would be the government.
Right.
So separation is easier to control. Right? So, there's a benefit in, of having people not all seeing eye to eye and working against each other. Right? So, this is the greatest country ever, but do I agree with everything that goes on? Like we have certain levels of freedom. And then the reality is if I don't do at the end of the day what authority says, the consequences are heavy. And the more that I do what I want to do, the heavier, the consequences could be. If they tell me to leave a certain neighborhood, if I don't go, first thing I'm about to get in gas. If I don't leave, if I still, stay there, then I'll get hit. If I fight once I'm getting hit. Now, you know what I mean? So to a certain extent, everything comes down to the end as who's in charge and the force. You go against the force, there's consequences. Right? You defend yourself against the force, there's consequences. So whatever that force may be, whatever that authority may be.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. It's easier to separate people for control than it is let everyone to come together. And I'll tell you, this is like in World War II, the Japanese wanted to invade the United States. And one of the reasons they didn't is because at the time they looked at hunting licenses in the United States, right? 600,000 people had hunting licenses in the United States. And this is World War II stuff, right? So they were like, there's no way if every person who had a hunting license fought against the Japanese, there's no way they could win. So it kept the Japanese from invading and that fact has kept anyone from invading America, right? Because if everyone who owned a gun was like, we don't want whoever tried to invade us here, that's the biggest army you ever seen. The people is the biggest army you ever seen, right? So keeping the people
not to interrupt
fighting.
I'm losing power. I'm losing power in my head.
Yeah. All right. So look, hey, we'll cut it off there, man. Hello? All right. So I'm Jaron Shrek McPhee, the sheriff of Baghdad. I just lost Kevin. So King Kevin Casey, check him out. He's been a UFC fighter. He fights in other places. He's a good friend of mine. And I'll close out the podcast because I lost him. Thanks for tuning in.